A woman's voice has long been treated as a problem to be corrected, rather than a strength to be valued. In The Taming of the Shrew, William Shakespeare tells the story of Catherine, an assertive and outspoken woman who is subjected to a process of taming by her husband Petruchio. Feminist criticism examines how literature reflects and reinforces systems of male dominance, particularly how women are portrayed and controlled within patriarchal societies. Through a feminist lens, The Taming of the Shrew argues that Catherine's taming is not a true transformation of her character, but rather a forced submission to a patriarchal control for survival, highlighting how society pressures women to adhere to restrictive gender expectations. Feminist criticism explores how literature represents women while exposing systems of male dominance, arguing that patriarchal societies often silence women or pressure them into submissive roles. In this context, Catherine's taming can be interpreted as a form of patriarchal control that forces her to conform to societal expectations of women. Scholars note that in early modern society, marriage reinforced male dominance by requiring women to be obedient while silencing their voices. Wives were often treated as invisible and expected to prioritize the needs of their husband above their own. This reveals a somber truth that Catherine's transformation is not just personal, but shaped by a culture that limits women's autonomy and voice. This broader understanding of patriarchal control helps explain what happens to women who resist conformity to these social norms. Feminist theory asserts that women who resist traditional gender roles are often punished or pressured to conform to societal expectations. The consequences of nonconformity can appear through social stigmas and heightened scrutiny, all of which work to preserve existing power structures and uphold traditional roles. This reveals how patriarchal systems discourage female independence by labeling resistance as unacceptable behavior. Catherine's treatment by society at the beginning of the play is evidence of this theory and proof that women are subjected to harm for challenging gender norms. At the beginning of the play, Catherine resists traditional femininity by speaking her mind and refusing to be submissive in a male-dominated society. Catherine is labeled a shrew by her community because she refuses to conform to expectations of female silence and submission like her sister Bianca. Rather than being seen as emotionally strong, honest, or strong-willed, Catherine is harshly criticized and labeled as problematic. This treatment reveals a cruel reality that acceptable femininity requires subordination to male patriarchy. Once Catherine is labeled by society, it becomes easy to justify the treatment she endures during the play. The shrew label allows characters to justify Catherine's taming as necessary rather than oppressive. Because Catherine is seen as difficult and undesirable, Petruchio's efforts to control her are framed as a solution to her behavior rather than an abuse of power. In the play, Petruchio says, "I am here to tame you and make you a household Kate." This line demonstrates how language is used to normalize control over women, making it seem acceptable to reshape their identities. This justification of control develops into a more extreme form of dominance as the play progresses. From a feminist perspective, patriarchal control operates through psychological oppression that strips women of autonomy and identity. Feminist thinkers argue that this subtle form of patriarchal control is maintained through stereotypes and cultural expectations that pressure women to adopt submissive identities. This form of oppression relies on women adopting misogynistic views to play an essential role in their own subordination and objectification. This form of control is most evident in Petruchio's treatment of Catherine after their marriage. Petruchio's treatment of Catherine illustrates how patriarchal control is enforced through coercion, psychological control, and the strategic withholding of basic needs such as food and rest. After their marriage, Petruchio deprives Catherine of sleep and food, claiming that nothing is good enough for her, and insisting his actions are for her benefit. This behavior breaks down Catherine's will and forces her into submission, demonstrating how control over basic needs can be used to reshape behavior. This gradual loss of autonomy ultimately leads to Catherine's final transformation. Catherine's final speech reflects the extent to which patriarchal control reshaped and silenced her original voice. In her speech, Catherine describes husbands as lords over wives and encourages women to be obedient and subservient to men. The first line in her last speech reads, "Thy husband is thy lord, thy life, thy keeper." This moment contrasts sharply with Catherine's earlier independence and outspoken nature. From a feminist lens, her speech can be seen as the loss of her authentic voice, replaced by language that reinforces male dominance. Taken together, these moments reveal that Catherine's obedience may be less of a sign of a personal growth and more of a performance shaped by survival within a patriarchal world. Through a feminist lens, The Taming of the Shrew reveals how patriarchal societies punish outspoken women and reward female submission. Catherine begins the play as opinionated, bold, and unwilling to be silenced, and those qualities cause her to be treated as a woman who must be reformed. Although her final speech appears to celebrate obedience to male dominance, it can also be read as a strategic performance shaped by the pressure that is placed upon her. Catherine ends the play with a long and powerful speech, suggesting that her voice is not fully erased, but rather changed by the demands within a social order shaped by male authority. Rather than openly supporting traditional gender hierarchies, the play exposes how male figures in a patriarchal society suppress women's voices as a means to maintain power.